You're listening to the I Like That Story podcast. This is episode 46. We're in season 3. This is the peculiar power of belonging and its importance in our second and third quarters of life. Today's story brought to you by Selby Studios, graphic imaging for family, home, and business. Now, those of you familiar with I Like That Story know that it is a business I started with the idea that I can give some guidance to help you in the various quarters of life. And I want to talk about the importance of belonging. There is something in all of us that is a need to belong. And yet in this time, we're seeing some real issues with belonging. There is something going on right now called the Great Resignation. I'm sure you've seen these for hire signs that are everywhere. Everybody is looking for workers, yet workers have checked out. Vast numbers of workers in the hospitality industry or in the manufacturing world or in food service and restaurants are just leaving. COVID gave them a chance to stay home, and now they say, what is the point of going back to that place? Or they're retiring. Why continue working in a place? Well, the only reason you would work at a place, besides the money, is if you felt like you belonged. Belonging is something that we all desire, whether we think about it or not. Yet, interestingly enough, it's also something we kind of avoid. Church memberships going through a free fall right now, service clubs, good things in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s up till now, but in the last 20 years, nobody seems to want to join. Yet, we still desire to belong. Well, let's just look at the elements of belonging and put them into some perspective, because there's some counterintuitive things about belonging that just don't seem to make sense but happen to be true. Corporate cultures, aren't we really saying in those that we want people to belong and feel like when they come to work that they belong? And so we do things like, improve benefits, and maybe we have, casual Fridays and pizza Wednesdays and ping pong tables and masseuses that go around. But belonging is deeper than just fuzzy things we give people. Belonging has an element of suffering that is strange but true. A friend of mine did an experiment while he was in college. He was in a fraternity, and he was in charge of the pledge class. And in one pledge class, he just basically said, "Hey, thanks for belonging. Here you go. Here's your pin. Enjoy the fraternity." But the next class he made much more difficult, had them do all kinds of different things. They had to really suffer. And yet, as the years rolled by afterwards, it was that second pledge class who loved the fraternity more, sacrificed more, did more, and enjoyed the fraternity more. He said, suffering equals love. I was talking to a guy who worked in the same industry for 30 years for a very difficult company. In fact, across town was a company doing the exact same thing, yet he never switched over to that company. He said, at least I have the satisfaction of being the hardest working person. Something about suffering made him belong and not want to leave. Weird, right? There's also an element of respect and excellence. I was interviewing a man who worked at a meatpacking plant where immigrants were hired. He was especially good at it. What he did was offer respect to these people who English was their second language. And he said, to do this job in an excellent way, you would do this, you would do this, you would do this, do this. And when you do this, then you will be an excellent worker. And because he expressed it that way, they rose to the challenge. They loved working for him, and they left, and they did not leave the company because they were loyal to belonging to that company because they were allowed to do something that was excellent. There's also weird and strange symbiology. Here we have this Cub Scout knot. It's a trinket, probably not worth more than $1, but the ceremony that goes with it gives you a chance of belonging. And so here we have the same for a badge they pin on your chest when you belong to something that has a uniform. And here talk about suffering. These dog tags they give you. If you look at dog tags, they have a notch in them. Why is there always a notch in a dog tag? Because when you die on the battlefield, they will take this and push it in between your front two teeth, kick it in, so that they can identify your corpse. Talk about sacrifice. Yet you talk to any veteran, and that belonging is still deeply ingrained in their persona. Yet here we see the Great Resignation. People are leaving the workplace right now. They don't want to work in hospitality industries. They don't want to work for a restaurant. They don't want to work in manufacturing. They feel like they don't belong there. Church memberships are losing vast numbers of people across all denominations. Service clubs are losing people. It seems like although we yearn to belong, we as companies, organizations, have forgotten what belonging means and how we would implement that. If there is a way that you could set a standard of excellence that would challenge people, if there was a sense of initiation where they would get something, wouldn't have to be very expensive, that they would wear that show that they belong, if there is an element of suffering, if there was a way that they could work hard and then also play hard, now you have something they belong to. That equals loyalty, that equals lower turnover. I'm sure all of this is obvious, right? Yet, why is it such a problem if it's obvious? I learned this back when I was in the invention world. The biggest problem is noticing the problem. Once you see the problem, the solution starts to make itself known. When we examine organizations that have a strong level of belonging, all the way from gangs to military to companies with a high esprit de corps, when we look at their habits and we study about how we can copy them, well, then this is a way that we can lower turnover, increase customer satisfaction, and from a personal point, really make life more enjoyable when we implement ways to belong. Well, that's the story today. I hope you've gotten something out of it. I hope you've had some elements that you can think and ponder over to get you or your company to a place where you want it to be. I do a series of speaking to groups. I write books. I have publications. You can find out all of that through my website, ilikethatstory.net. If you would comment on this particular podcast, or if you would share it to others, or post a like or rate it, that would be very helpful. If you are watching this on YouTube, I would ask the same thing, just to give a comment or post it or share it or subscribe. Anything like that would be very helpful for me. And it would be a pleasure of mine to talk to you in person someday, and thank you for supporting the program. Until that time happens, my name is Jeff Gould. God bless.